Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective. Today I'm going to be going not a totally different route. I'm still going to pull an affirmators card if there's time. But today is Tuesday Thoughts, and something happened in the city I live in yesterday that I think needs to be addressed and needs to be talked about, because there was a lot of things. I saw a lot of comments that people were making and a lot of things that people were saying, and I don't have the answers, but I have, I think, maybe insight to some degree, and I wanted to share that because I think it is about mental health, and I will give you a trigger warning. It is about suicide, and this one happened on a very grand scale, sort of. I don't want to say grand, but the city I live in Southern California is 7 square miles. Okay, so by all intents and purposes, we are a very small city, but we're surrounded by several big ones. Right down the street that way, we have Cal State Fullerton, and that way we have Yorba Linda, which is pretty big. To the south, we have Anaheim. Well, to the south-ish, we have Anaheim and Orange. And then up north, or going north, we have basically LA. So, in a 7 square mile city, I think, good morning, Shannon. I think it's something that needs to be broached and talked about, because I don't think a lot of people truly understand mental health. Like I said, if I have time, I will pull another affirmators card from the original deck, okay, and we'll talk about that, see what it has to say. But like I said, I think it's very important. I have a few thoughts on that, and good morning, baby sibling, and I wanted to talk about those things because I think just some of the comments that people were making did not sit well with me. And it's not their fault, but there's so much that's not understood when somebody takes their own life that I think some things need to be cleared up. Like I said, I don't have the answers, but I have insight. So that's going to be the first part, and I wanted to let people know that in case it's a trigger alert. And then, like I said, we'll see if we can get to the affirmators deck. So just to kind of leave it on a higher note, right? So let's start with these. It's time to make a decision. If you are on the fence about something and you know you should be doing it or not be doing it, make the decision now, okay? Someone's saying, look, the sorting hat is saying, sort yourself out. Live free. Live free. That's pretty self-explanatory, right? Just chill. Don't be hasty. Don't rush to judgment. If you're still on the fence because you're not sure, take your time. Figure it out. Ooh, I saw this one yesterday, but it didn't come up. I'd like to take this one as validation. The Tri-Wizard Cup. Congratulations, you have succeeded. Pat yourself on the back. Pat yourself on the back. And Rome wasn't built in a day, but when in Rome, it's your choice. Oh, hi Shannon. I'm not sure if you're still on, but thank you for popping in and saying hello, and good luck with your training today. Those were the cards. Let's just get rolling, okay? Let's get rolling. So yesterday, here in the city that I live in, we actually didn't know until yesterday afternoon, but it was big enough to make our local news. Or not our local news, to make the news in Southern California, which the markets for Southern California is generally, where I live, LA. Okay, so, sorry, my hair is just doing all kinds of weird things and not cooperating with me today. But anyways, so, I know this is kind of a heavy subject. I know it's kind of a deep subject. But the reason I wanted to talk about it was because, I'm not sure if I said good morning, older sibling, but good morning, older sibling. Is because I think a lot of the comments that people were making were just because they're not 100% educated in mental health. And that's nobody's fault. We just, up until maybe the last decade, we haven't really talked about it. And it's still, even though this has been around for eons, I mean, since the beginning of time, okay, depression has existed. There was just never a name for it. It was just deal with it and move on. right? And that's why a lot of bad things could happen. That's why a lot of people couldn't understand, well, why did that happen? And in my experience, now I want you guys to understand, this is my perspective only. This is my opinion. This is where I'm coming from as a person with a dinged up mental health and a person who has, experienced suicide, in the sense that I've lost, I lost a friend, and I've known people, but also as someone who has come very close to attempting it. And by coming close, I mean divine intervention stepped in each time. And I'm very, very grateful for that. But, or whatever you want to call it. But, I even told sibling, I'm not even sure I'd be brave enough to have gone through it. But, I was very fortunate that I never had the opportunity to follow through on the act. But yesterday, an assistant principal at one of our middle schools took their own life in the staff bathroom. And I guess it was in the morning. I don't know if it was intentional that they chose this day, because apparently, according to the press release that was put out, sibling and I belong to an app called Nextdoor, which is basically, it's an app for people in your community. And somebody who has children there posted the letter that was written by the principal and put out to the parents. And they were supposed to have a suicide prevention talk yesterday as a school assembly thing. So I don't know if it's irony or coincidence or planned, but the assistant principal, again, like I said, took his own life in the bathroom. I believe it was a gunshot. And I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this, because it's not my story. I'm not directly involved. I'm not a parent who has a child there. But a lot of the comments I would see were parents, I'm so angry this happened. Why did they have to do it at the school? Why this? Why that? Why this? Why that? And I'm not mad at them for having those comments or making those comments, because a lot of times people don't understand. People don't get it. It's very possible. No one will ever know why he chose her unless he left a note. I don't know, but I will probably never know why he chose this particular place. And it was away from students. It was in, like I said, it was in the staff bathroom. It's my understanding that the principal is the one that found him. But a lot of times people choose certain ways to do things because they don't want the people they love and who love them to find them. They don't want to put, a lot of times it can maybe be like they feel like a burden. Maybe there's just too much pressure. They might feel overwhelmed. Suicide is such a personal choice. I mean, it is truly, truly a personal choice. I've mentioned in the past about a person I worked with who was a good friend of mine. And when I saw this person the day they left, I didn't know it would be the last time I saw them. It was the last person to see them leave the office. Said, "Hey, I hope you feel better. Have a great evening. I'll see you tomorrow." Several hours later, "Good morning, Eileen. I'm getting a call from her husband. Or, have you heard from her? She's not answering." We're all like just psycho texting her. Poor choice of words, but we're all, we're psycho texting her like, "Please answer us." That night I found out that she had taken her own life. And I don't think it was planned. I mean, in this case, I think in this scenario with the assistant principal, it probably was. Nobody brings a gun to school, right? Well, okay, that aside. But in this particular case, the only thing I can guess is that they probably didn't want their family to find them. Not that it makes it any easier on the person that does find them, especially if it's a colleague. But it's probably a burden they did not want to place on their actual family. Or it's very possible they lived alone and was afraid nobody would find them. But here's the thing about mental health. And again, this is my perspective. These are my opinions. You could be in a room full of people and feel completely alone. You can be in a house full of people that love you and feel completely alone. When you are so far in your mind and your soul has become so dark that you cannot find a way out, you can feel, you can be in a stadium full of people and feel alone. And that may not make sense to a lot of people, but just if you don't suffer from a dinged up mental health, think about that for a second. You're probably sitting there just kind of scoffing at the, oh yeah, stadium full of people and feeling alone. That's how desperate the feeling can be. If you're literally sitting there, and okay, well, Shannon put this in the comments, so I'm going to share this. She says, when my cousin took her own life, it was harder on me because my family was really mean about it. It was harder to process. I eventually had to say something to them before they realized how inconsiderate they were being. I just think people don't understand, and they don't know what to say or do, or they just are misinformed about it. Exactly. And this is exactly why I'm talking about this. Because, like I said, I'm not a parent, all right? And I'm certainly not a parent of a child who went to this school. But there was one dad who says, well, yeah, because somebody else replied on it to his comment saying, I'm really angry that they did this at my child's school while the children were in school, and or that we know of. I'm not sure if it happened while they were in school or everybody got to school and they found them, because it sounds like almost immediately kids were released. So I'm not sure if it happened during school hours or before school hours, but whatever the case, and like I said, I'm not faulting the parent for the way they feel. The whole point of doing this particular perspective is, like I said, we're trying to get back into the more upbeat, positive, or I'm trying to get into the more upbeat, positive, putting out this better daily vibe, right? But like I mentioned before, when I decided to go back to the old format, there will be times when subjects arise that need to be discussed. First and foremost, this perspective, once known as the vibe, it started because I needed a pick-me-up in my own mental health. And it just kind of took off from there. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is this. When I saw the person's comment, there were so many things I wanted to say. There was a gentleman who posted after him on the Nextdoor app that kind of said, I don't know why, but it was this, that, or the other. And somebody else said, mental health is very under talked about. As I mentioned before, they were going to have a suicide prevention assembly that yesterday at their school. So it's kind of, like I said, I don't know if it was coincidental or if it was intentional that it happened on this particular day. But it can cause trauma and grief, even if students didn't know what was happening until later. But in a way, this is something that needs to be addressed. A lot of people talk about how, when I was in high school, we had a class called Career and Family Studies. And Career and Family Studies was talking about, how to not get pregnant before you're out of high school, how to, just kind of balance work and life. But what we never really talked about, except for maybe touching on it for a second, was mental health. How to treat people who have mental health, how to kind of see the signs or understand. The signs aren't always going to be the same. Like I said, in my particular experience, there is no rule book when it comes to mental health. We literally wing it every day. And I say we because there's a broad spectrum of us. I refer to the mental health as a mental health umbrella, because an umbrella has a lot of spokes, right? And it's what makes the umbrella open and close. And each spoke has a diagnosis, under this umbrella. And for me, I'm grateful because mine is what I consider the run of the mill, right? But then you have all these other little things. You have like borderline personality disorder, narcissistic disorder, sociopathic disorder, psychopathic disorder, which is pretty extreme, right? Bipolarism, There's persistent depressive disorder. There's then you have your PTSDs, right? And now there's even a complex PTSD, CPTSD, which is kind of narrowed out to people who have suffered trauma. And not just like regular PTSD trauma. I don't mean regular, but what I mean is like abuse, and whether it's emotional, physical, and that kind of thing, or even childhood sexual abuse. Those things have kind of pinpointed into that particular thing. And there was a time when I had CPTSD, but of course I moved past it before it got a diagnosis. So, yay for that. But the reason I think we need to educate people more is because after the person had replied to this one guy and said, tried to explain in his own way, in a very eloquent but short way, sometimes it's just, there's probably a reason, no one's going to know why. And the guy says, well, yeah, I'm sad for what happened, but I'm angrier. I'm just mad. Why there? And it's almost like, I was talking to an older sibling this morning about it. And I said, when people don't understand mental health, they'll sit there and say, well, yeah, it's sad that happened. But, like I said, it can be a very personal choice. It can be a very spontaneous choice. When I was referring to my friend, it was so spontaneous that my understanding was that the note was written on the back of a receipt that they had found in their purse. But there were a lot of factors leading up to this moment that had happened within hours of when she passed. But I don't think she woke up that morning deciding she was going to jump off a building. And yes, that's how it happened. She sat there. People tried to stop her. They called the police, and she died in the arms, I believe, of an officer. And because I guess the building wasn't tall enough. I don't know, and I'm not trying to be funny, but it was a 5-story building or 5-story parking structure from what I understand. And I don't think that was the way, she thought her day was going to go. But some people are just tired. And I don't mean physically tired. I mean mentally and physically tired. When I say that suicide or taking taking your own life is a personal choice, I truly mean that. It's a personal choice. Sometimes people feel like there's no other way out. There are times when it's a very personal choice and people know they're dying and choose the way they want to go out on their time. And that's, well, I guess that would be assisted suicide, but it's still the same thing because you're facing your mortality. But on the spectrum of mental health, I think sometimes people think about it and plan it out. But I also know that some people don't. Now, it's possible, like I said, that this gentleman, the assistant principal, planned it out because, he brought a gun to school. I don't know any teacher personally, I don't know. But, it's exactly... Okay, so Shannon was saying sometimes you can't really see it. Her cousin changed his meds. No one knew. It is important to be understanding, compassionate for everyone. And my heart hurts for everyone battling. Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I love it. Thank you. You are saying exactly what I'm trying to say. Believe it or not, when I get my antidepressants, especially when I change to a new one, my doctor has me taper off. Okay. And then it's like, take one, and then half of one, and then none, and then half of one, and then none, and then half of the new one, and then, none, or half of the new one for 2 days, and then move into a full one. And when you don't do that, it can really mess up with your system because it's working with your body. And I actually get a pamphlet inside of my, because it's mail order, but I get a pamphlet inside of it saying, if you are on a new prescription, make sure somebody is watching you for the next 2 weeks. Let somebody know. It's very specific. Let somebody know. Because bad things can happen. there was a long time ago where there was a heart patch and an antidepressant. And this is years ago when I used to be a pharmacy tech. And one day, we had my very first pharmacy tech job was in Point Loma, California. And it's very widely known to be a very fisherman type of community in San Diego. A lot of captains lived out there of fishing boats that would go out for months on end. And, see, Shannon says, yes, I do too. I make sure everyone around me knows I'm switching and ask them to keep an extra eye on me. Her husband, co-workers, and family all know. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And thank you for sharing that, because I love the fact that people are not ashamed of their mental health. This is why we need to destigmatize it. A lot of times people do not get the help they need because they're shamed growing up. They feel ashamed growing up. I mean, look how long it has taken me to come to terms with the fact that I have a dinged up mental health. And I don't mean like, yeah, I acknowledged it. I mean, just fully embracing it and understanding that this is my life, that this is how it's going to go, and that I have to maintain it. People talk about it going into remission, but all remission really is, even when it's a reference to cancer, is making sure it doesn't come back, which means you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of, your thought processes every day. If you latch on to something that's been hurting you, you have to find a way to let it go so it doesn't become something dark. Some people can have things happen to them and then they're done. They walk away and it's like, okay, that's it. Other people can't. It's like a drug. It's like feeding off of something because it's so familiar. And when your mental health goes unchecked, it becomes too familiar a feeling. And it can hurt. And when people don't understand, it makes it harder. And that happened, as Shannon mentioned, in her family. People were being inconsiderate. People weren't understanding. And it very well could be, as she said, sometimes people don't know what to say. Sometimes people don't know what to do. The next day after work, when our coworker passed away, the big boss flew in from the Bay Area and she brought in a grief counselor. And the grief counselor was there for the entire day. I mean, they only kept us for half a day. Nobody was going to get anything done because everybody was in shock. But what was interesting was some of the people knew very privately that I was dealing with my own mental health issues. At the time that this happened, I was really kind of coming into terms with my own mental health. And I was really at the lowest I had been at that time. But I didn't say anything to anybody. I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew because I was a pro at fake it till you make it. But when I walked in the door that morning, there were 4 people standing at my desk waiting for me to get in. And then I was just surrounded by hugs and I just broke down. It's a strong memory. But I broke down because they're just like, how are you doing it? It's like, I had to fake it on top of faking it. And by that, I mean, I couldn't tell anybody how I was feeling. And for 2 reasons. Because I was afraid they would think I was comparing myself. Or I was afraid they would think that I was going to be next. So I just pretended like I was okay until I got home. Or okay enough. Like, I wasn't pretending to be grieving. Because I was grieving. I was grieving with all of them. And I worked very closely with her. She was my first boss in that office when I got there. She was the reason I got that job, which was 15 years of my life. But the part I had to fake was that was the only thing bothering me. That was the only thing that was hurting. And eventually it broke me. And it was actually the straw that broke the camel's back and why I ended up in therapy. Because I couldn't cope anymore. But it was also in that moment when I went home, I called older sibling on my way home, and I made a promise to her, and I made a promise to my friend that passed away, and I made a promise, and I texted baby sibling and made a promise to her that no matter how many times I entertain the idea, I will not take my own life. And the reason I did not make that promise to myself is because I'm not good at keeping those kind of promises to myself. So I knew I had to make it to people that I know I will not want to let down. And that was also, I think, one of the reasons I also wanted to talk about this is because I've talked about how difficult the last several months have been. Back is up against the wall when it comes to finances, still trying to figure out how all that's working and how to make it work. And I'm starting to get that vibe back, and things are starting to happen again, and things are starting to get better. But I finally came clean with older sibling this weekend, and one of the reasons I spiraled was because I have had some major suicidal tendencies or thoughts over the last couple of months, and not just sporadically like I made it sound. I mean, it was almost daily. The world would be better without me. Why am I here? I'm just messing everything up for everybody else. And each time I was reminded of my promise that I made. And each time I realized, no, this is why I made this promise to these people, because that's not the way I want to go. But what I didn't realize, and that I realized over the weekend while talking to older sibling, was that I was shaming myself for having these thoughts. I was, shaming myself for entertaining the thoughts. And what I told older sibling, because she worried, and I understand that she was very worried when I told her this, but I told her, I said, on Sunday morning or Monday morning, yesterday, I was talking to her, and I had journaled Sunday night. And I told her, I said, you know what? I said, I understand now why I needed to talk about this. Because I needed to validate these feelings. I needed to not brush them aside like they're no big deal. Because I was treating my mental health the way people who don't understand mental health would treat it. I was being inconsiderate to my own feelings. I wasn't entertaining the fact, or I wasn't validating the fact that I felt this low, that I felt this helpless, and this scared, and that tired of having to deal with all these things, and not knowing how things are going to work out, not trusting that anything is going to work out. Because, I've fought so many things already in my life. There was just one more thing. I just didn't have the strength to fight anymore. And I truly believe it's my promise that kept me here. And I'm grateful for that. I'm very grateful for that. So I'm about to read what Shannon's written. And I have to tell you, it is 100% how I feel and why I do this perspective. She says, I don't mind talking about my mental health. You never know who needs to hear it. I'm not ashamed of it. And if I can help someone, so be it. And then she thanked me. But that's why I do this. Because, in Asia, suicide is still very stigmatized. Mental health is very stigmatized. One of my dear friends is a K-pop fan, and there's been, if you follow any kind of news, they've had some members in K-pop groups that just could not handle their mental health anymore, could not face it or cope with it anymore, and ended up taking their lives. And one person's mom actually decided to go against the grain, and she put her foot down, and she works now to make mental health more understood. And, in a lot of cultures, it's very stigmatized, and this is why we need to really kind of understand mental health. In fact, it's funny. I bought this book a while ago and I couldn't find it. And then something dropped in my room. And when I looked down, there was this book called The Self-Apology. And I want to read the beginning. It's written by Azine Ogmua. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Or Ogwuma. I apologize for saying the name wrong, but I believe, so this is what's interesting. I believe he's from Africa, or part of the African culture, and I read this last night, and it's the only thing I read. Okay, I can't tell you how long I've had this book, but I have not read it yet. But I know it's time, And he just writes, the shade over depression has been unsheathed, thankfully. In Nigeria alone, there are more than 1.5 million cases every year against over 300 million people in the world who are also affected. This strongly arises from the feeling of unfulfillment, self-esteem issues, emotional and physical abuse, hormonal imbalance, and many more. Coming from an African culture, it is quite unfathomable to be seen as vulnerable, as it is perceived that the African man is wired to be strong and not allowed to be soft as time is going. In recent times, attempted suicides and actual suicide are on the high toll, which doesn't seem to be decreasing. Also, the abuse of drugs in the quest to numb the worries of the mind and escape reality is on a high toll, thereby indirectly leading to death from overdose or, in saddening cases, escalating and triggering more severe mental issues. That hit the nail on the head as well. You know, there are going to be a lot of different perspectives that we have when it comes to mental health. Mine is one, Shannon's is one, but a lot of us are on the same page in wanting to share our experiences because they do vary. They do vary. And, you know, when we share these experiences, when we share this understanding, you know, there's that one person that's going to say, oh my God, I totally get where you're coming from. And now I don't feel alone. And that's the point, is to make one person not feel alone. Now, I'm not going to lie, I peeked really quickly at the affirmator card today because I wanted to see if it would make sense. So, or if it would be appropriate for today. And it felt like it kind of was. And it was called engagement. Okay, and there you have the little fish and the octopus. And it's going to talk about engaging with the outside world. But when we have mental health issues, I think it's also important to engage with ourselves, to really kind of learn the person we are. What is this pain that we're having? This is kind of the shadow work I talked about, that, you know, Carl Jung's shadow work. It's about digging deep and going into the repressed memories. The reason sometimes I suggest that you find a therapist before you do shadow work is shadow work has a tendency to make you feel like you are going to break in a million pieces. And if you were already teetering on the brink, it's better to have someone there to help you through it, to walk you through it, to guide you through it, to kind of be there as your net so that you don't shatter into a million pieces. You know, or at least if you shatter into a million pieces, there's someone there to help you pick up those pieces. You know, and these are some of the tools that I've learned. And so, you know, it's like almost having a mental health babysitter in a way. And I don't mean to put it that way because I don't want anyone to be afraid of going into therapy if it is needed, if you want to do the shadow work. But if you feel like you were already struggling and you take this on, healing is messy. It is very messy. Healing is those scenes in those movies where you see people throwing shit everywhere, knocking crap off the desk, you know, throwing themselves on the floor and just laying there like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. It's that messy. But what happens when you clean up a mess? You make that clean spot, right? You're like, wow, look how amazing that can be. And then you keep cleaning and cleaning and cleaning until everything feels shiny. Now, the interesting part about shadow work is that when you break yourself down into these pieces that have been, that kind of shattered you, that, you know, you barely, you know, it's like when you see those windows, right? Where they're just, they're shattered, but they're still intact because all the pieces are holding each other up. But if you just push one out, the whole window falls apart, right? The whole pane of glass just shatters. It's kind of like that. Except in this case, I saw a great quote the other day, which I wish I'd actually kept up here, written down. But it was talking about taking these broken pieces and turning yourself into a mosaic. There's also kintsugi, I believe that's what it is, in the Japanese culture, where they take the broken pieces and mend them back together with gold so that you can see where all the cracks are. And it becomes a beautiful piece of art. It's actually become a thing now where people break things and put things back together to make it art. But I've always kind of liked the idea that somebody referred to that as mental health, because when you fall apart and you break into these pieces, you can put yourself back together the way you know you were meant to be put back together. You were giving yourself that second chance to be the person that you may not have ever gotten to be. You know, I had a very interesting childhood in that I had a normal childhood, but also a stolen childhood. You know, and I've talked about this in the past where nobody knew what happened to me. Nobody knew what was happening in my life. My parents never knew. Nobody knew. But I played the role of this child trying to live this normal life. But there was always that anchor and that dread and sadness. And that's what was stolen from me. And so when I broke apart and I fell apart, I realized just recently, actually, so it was a long time after, I had to break myself again to reconstruct the person that I know I'm meant to be. That I may not be able to get my childhood back. You know, but I have the opportunity now to live a full life, to live a complete life. Not a half life, but a complete life. As this person who sees things differently now, but who still respects and in a way pays homage to the person that I used to be. You know, sometimes people change, sometimes people stay the same but change certain things. I am not the same person I used to be. I'm much different. I see the world through a different lens now, and I'm still learning how to do that and keep it consistent. But I'm starting to understand. I'm starting to pick up my vibe again. I'm starting to feel that high vibration again. And not just because I'm faking it and pushing things aside, but because I've dealt with these things and I'm learning how to deal with them as they come up. When it came to the suicidal thoughts I'd been having quite frequently, I decided, and I journaled about it, that I need to validate these feelings. Because the only way I can push forward and help people is if I help them to understand that you should not be stigmatizing yourself or shaming yourself. Because if you're entertaining these things, but you don't follow through, you're making it to that next sunrise. And that's what I want. I want people to know that they can reach out for help, that they can reach out to people and say, hey, you know what? I am in the most desperate of situations. Please help me. Without being judged, without people being inconsiderate, without people saying, I'm mad, why'd they choose this place? There's a certain level of compassion and empathy that has to go with situations like this. I understand the anger of the parent, but imagine what it would be like to be that person's family. Because now they're not only dealing with the fact that they've lost a loved one, but they're going to start thinking, what could I have done to make sure this did not happen? Their colleagues are going to think this. Their friends are going to think this. Their family members are going to think this. And it's not a guess. This is what happened in my office. Every single one of us that was close to her, what could I have done? Did I not do this enough? Did I not listen enough? Did I not show enough? I sat there for a long time thinking, I was going through the worst time in my life. How did I not see these signs? And I punished myself for that for a long time. How did I not know? I mean, I was the resident expert in that office of mental health, and I couldn't even see the signs. And maybe I couldn't see the signs because I was going through my own pain and trying to hide it. Or maybe I didn't want to see it because it felt too close to home. I don't know. Nobody has the answers. Like I said, there's no rule book on this. It's a very personal choice. But try to let go of that anger when somebody does something. Try to get, into a position where you can ask yourself, or even say to yourself, this was a personal choice. There was nothing I could do. Because in the end, that's really what it means. There's nothing I could do. This is a choice they made. And we can go forward and honor these people and their struggle and make sure that we can save as many lives down the road as possible. And just be there for people. You know, and if you do know somebody who has taken their own life, show compassion and mercy to that person. You know, I mean, okay, she doesn't need to hear this from me, but I'm very proud of Shannon for standing up to her family and saying, hey, you know what? Seriously, what is wrong with you people? And she's right. Maybe they didn't know what to say. Maybe they didn't know how to cope with it. Maybe it was guilt that made them feel this way because there's nothing they could have done. When a person takes their own life, please do your best to not feel guilty or responsible. Again, it is a personal choice. If somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I need your help, and you turn them away, that might be another story. Or if you don't take them seriously, that might be another story. But a lot of times, I still try not to blame people in those situations because I think a lot of times people just don't know how to handle it. You know, people, they don't know what to say. Or they're afraid. But just show compassion, show empathy. Sometimes you don't need to say anything. You just need to be there with them. You need to sit there with them until that moment passes. Okay? And if you don't have a lot of people, this is the card I want to read. Engagement. Today I make the conscious choice to engage with the world in an active way. I'll take a new route and talk to strangers. I will smell flowers and pet dogs and maybe walk around barefoot for a while if I'm not inside a 7-Eleven. Remember, these are snarky. At the very least, I'll have a day that's slightly more interesting than average, and at the most, I'll have a startling epiphany or make a friend who will change my life forever. No pressure. You might be saying, Shelley Marie, that card does not even come close to what you're talking about, but it does. If you go out for a walk, even if you don't sit and talk to people, if you go somewhere where there are people, maybe just sit for a moment and people watch. The point is, get out of your own head. Go for a walk. But while you're walking, don't think about your problems. You know, last week I had a bit of I was just in a mood. Okay, I was in a mood. I was struggling with a lot of things. I was struggling with my brain. And I got upset and I thought, okay, I'm going out. I'm going to go run an errand. And I realized for almost an hour and a half, all I did was gratitude. You know, even when I was turning, and this is funny. So this is a side note. As I was turning, someone looked like they were going to turn against the red light. I'm almost positive it's the girl, my hairdresser. I was almost positive it was my hairdresser because she works in the area and she lives in the area. But I was turning, and instead of getting mad, I thought, I'm so grateful they didn't turn. And they waited for me to go by. Hello. I mean, I was sarcastic about it, but I was just trying to show gratitude. I was trying to find anything to be grateful for. The lines in the road, right? The little bump things in the road to stop you from going into the other lane. The smooth pavement, the building, the parking spaces, you know, having a parking space there. You know, having a membership to one of the big box stores so I could go pick up siblings' medicine. You know, just I was grateful. I'm grateful for the money to pick up the medicine, right? And for the money to have, you know, the ability to buy these groceries. I was thinking of anything. I was grateful for my pens, the Post-it notes, you know, the people smiling at me, you know, because at that point we weren't really required to wear masks anymore. But, you know, I did have mine on. It's habit right now. But, you know, just the people saying hello or, you know, can I help you when I'm checking out? I was trying to be grateful for everything, okay? I was grateful for a stoplight because I was trying so hard to think of things to be grateful for. It's like, I'm so happy and grateful for this stoplight. The point is, even when I walked in the door, I was still under my breath. I'm so happy and grateful for. And it got me out of my head. I was doing it to kind of calm myself down so I wouldn't become angry. But as it turns out, it got me out of my head. Because somewhere in there, my brain was listening to everything, and all it was hearing is, I'm so happy and grateful for, or I'm so happy and grateful. Remember what I used to say. What you say is what you hear, and what you hear is what your brain is going to process and what you're going to see. And if you constantly keep focusing on the negative and the bad, that is exactly what you're going to see. Yes, I do understand how hard it can be to push yourself out of that comfort zone and to get out of your head and back into your heart, to get out of the pain and back into the light. So, here's what Shannon does. When it's rough, I go outside and look at nature. Yesterday, I found a spider. I love them. Okay, girl, you're weird. I'm just kidding. And watched him for a while. Also, always make a huge difference for me just to go out and look at nature. I always discover something and then get out of my head and process everything. For me, it's mainly severe anxiety, so it's different, but it makes a big deal. You know what? Depression and anxiety can go hand in hand. And when you have both at the same time, as I'm sure you've experienced, because I know I have, it is no picnic. But believe it or not, I didn't realize I had anxiety for a long time. I thought it was part of my depression. And I was never diagnosed with it because I never had it severely enough. It would seem like when I would have a flare-up of emotions, I would get anxiety as well. Fortunately for me, that has kind of settled itself, and now I just deal with the regular, I call it the regular depression, because like I said, I am fortunate that I don't have a lot of the other diagnoses that other people have. So I feel very grateful. I know people are like, why do you feel grateful for having a poor mental health? I feel very grateful because it's a lot easier for me, compared to some of the people that I've talked to and that I know. It's something I can handle. It is something I can handle. So she says, the depression makes my anxiety worse, then I spiral. PTSD is no, it's not. PTSD is no fun. And I just want you to know, Shannon, I'm here if you need me. Okay? Just text me, IM me. If you're going through this, I will just literally sit there and listen. If you don't want me to say anything. If you want me to say something, you can ask me. But if you don't want me to say, look, I'm just reaching out to you because I need to vent, and I'll give you the there, like I give baby sibling. That's our thing. It's the there. So we'll come up with something new, but I'll be there for you. I'll be there for any one of you. If you feel like yourself spiraling, it's not a pretty feeling. It's a terrible feeling. And I can only imagine what might have been going through this person's mind yesterday when they chose this way out, when they chose this option. And like I said, it's not something people come at easily. It's a very personal choice. It's a very permanent choice. I have known people who attempted suicide, did not succeed at it, and felt like failures. I mean, how sad is that when you're trying to take your own life and then it doesn't work and you feel like a failure, instead of seeing that your purpose is that you're meant to be here. It wasn't your time yet. It wasn't your turn to go yet. And that maybe you do need to add more to this world. And I'll tell you, older sibling's always been a very open book about her life. I know she's probably sitting there. I can feel her thinking, share my story. And she was one of those people. Her and I talked about that when she was a teenager. And I told her, I said, I'm grateful that you failed, because I can't imagine my life without you. She was a very huge, significant part of my healing journey through this vast darkness of depression. This journey through my darkness. Whenever I couldn't find my way out, she'd be tossing a light down into that well, saying, here, in case you need it. And she would sit there with me. She's like that story, right, where I told you, the guy's trapped in the well, and several people come by. Sorry, I can't get you out, but I'll sit with you and talk with you. Sorry, I can't get you out. I don't have a rope, but I will sit here and pray for you. And then, oh, hey, you're stuck down there. Let me join you. And the person's like, why are you jumping in? How are we both going to get out? He's like, I've been here and I know how to get out. And that was her. She jumped into the depths with me because she knew how to pull me out. And it wasn't easy. Kicking, screaming, crying. Just being a complete fucking asshole sometimes. That was me. Because I was resisting it. Because I didn't know how to feel any differently. I didn't know I was allowed to feel better about myself. I didn't know I was allowed to feel like I was worth it. Even though these are the things that my parents taught me. You're beautiful, you're smart, you're kind, you're compassionate. You're worth it. You're worth the best life you want to live. But because of my secret, I didn't feel that way. My anchor was so cemented into dread that I needed someone to come in with a jackhammer and release that anchor. Or to come in with bolt cutters or big metal things to cut big metal anchors and say, set your sails free. Put your sails up and, float off into the sunset. And since then, other people have come in to help. Baby sibling's been there. My father's trying to understand mental health. It's a long journey. It's a long road. But when you're committed to it, you can find some kind of balance. You can find, some people have to go to therapy every week for the rest of their life. But that's how they maintain. That's how they make it through. And the reason I wanted to bring this up was because I think it's important that when children are old enough, like if you're going to have an assembly at your school about suicide prevention, open the conversation at home as well. My parents never saw my mental health. When I finally told my mom about it, she didn't want to talk about it. She swept it under the rug. And I think part of it is because I don't think she knew how to deal with it. I think she was afraid because a lot of times we put mental health and suicide in the same boat. They fall under the same umbrella, but they're not companions in the same boat. It's an end result. It's an end choice or an end attempt at a permanent choice. A person that has sketchy or dinged up mental health like myself doesn't mean we're going to do bad things to ourselves. And when somebody comes to you and says, hey, you know what, my doctor diagnosed me with depression, don't sweep it under the rug. Say, you know what, educate me if you don't understand. Help me know what you're feeling. And if I don't understand what you're feeling, if they don't understand what you're feeling, don't be mad at them. Okay, my father said, I wish I could understand what you were going through because I don't. And I told him flat out, without missing a beat, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy because it's a horrible feeling when it comes up. And I said, it doesn't happen all the time. It used to be pretty persistent, but now it's not. Now it's something I'm able to control and maintain. Well, not always control, but I should say maintain. Sometimes it gets a little shaky, like a little tremor or an earthquake, right? But it's something for the most part I am able to maintain, that I am developing tools to handle as things come up. But if you want to reach out to somebody and tell them that you need someone to listen, don't be mad when they don't understand. This is why we are here to educate. A lot of times we knee-jerk, we get pissed off, and we run in the other direction instead of educating people. That's the importance of this. We need to make mental health a part of education. How to handle people, how to deal with people. It doesn't need to be its own class if it doesn't want to be. But if you're going to do these things in high school with career and family studies, or even in biology, mental health is part of biology, guys. It's an imbalance. It's an imbalance. A lot of people say, no, it's not. No, it's not. You're just choosing to be this way. No. Okay, most people are not choosing to be this way. a lot of times it develops from trauma. A lot of times it develops, there's a billion reasons why. It's an imbalance. It's, if people are on drugs, right, it can actually screw up your mental brain or your mental processes. Think about this. If you have not seen the show Dope Sick, all right, I sibling is probably like, oh, see, she wouldn't watch it. Now she's telling everyone about it. It kind of explains, because in a way, even though it was really a show about big pharma and how big pharma ruined a lot of lives because of addiction, when the doctor is trying to get people off of this stuff, he says it can take a long time to rewire your brain because your brain has become dependent on something else to numb your own pain, to numb your own feelings. It's a process. It is a nasty process sometimes. I never had to deal with that, which I am grateful for. But I've had to deal with trauma. And like I said, I've had to relearn everything in the sense of what I do deserve. And that I am worth it. And like I said, I keep writing it on me that I am worth it until it becomes such a natural thought that I don't have to write it on my arm anymore. But until that day comes, I'm going to continually sharpen my arm with I am worth it. Okay? So remember, you are enough. If you're struggling, go out into nature, engage in life. Journal if you have to. If you're afraid of journaling by yourself somewhere or at home, go to a Starbucks, go to a mall, go to a restaurant. Don't worry about showing your emotions. Okay? It may be that you've chosen this place because the universe, God, your higher power, whoever your source is, may have somebody waiting there to help you. It may not always happen. Some people are afraid to step in and say anything. But even if someone says, are you going to be okay? And you just say, I'm fine. Even if you don't have the courage to talk to somebody in that moment, take the fact that somebody asked you. Okay? And like I said, if nobody comes to you, it's okay. Just keep journaling, just keep writing. It's meant for you to show yourself that you decided to choose, to go a different route this day. And please, 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 don't shame yourselves. Don't shame yourselves for the thoughts that you have sometimes, but find a way to work through them. Because the most important thing that I want for everybody is for everybody to see that next sunrise. So Shannon says, that'll be me, therapy for life, but I'm glad I do it. I need it. It's worth every hour. Oh, thank you, girl. And I know she's gone right now, but Shannon, thank you so much for sharing your story and for sharing and jumping on this. I know that you had training, but I appreciate it. So anyways, I'm glad we were able to get to the affirmator card. Tomorrow is Self-Care Wednesday. I know, right? Maybe I should have done this tomorrow on Self-Care Wednesday, but remember, guys, mental health is, there is, in my personal opinion, there is no rule book on mental health, and each person that goes through mental health, even if they have the same diagnosis as someone else, each individual experience is exactly that. It's an individual experience. We all handle things differently. We all handle things, sometimes the best that we think we can. If you are struggling, please seek help. If you go to shellbellinthemoment.com, on my website, I have important numbers on there that you can reach out and talk to people. And it's not just hotlines in America. There's hotlines that a friend helped me put together, and for all over. Okay. So again, reach out, please. If you are feeling suicidal, like I said, it's a personal choice, but if you are, please reach out to somebody. Please, call the hotline, call somebody, and hopefully they will be able to get you the help you need. Hopefully you will find a way. Journal your feelings out. I know that seems silly and kind of simple for some people, But I have to tell you, when I journaled, you can do what they call a burn book. Just get a regular old notebook, write everything in it, and you have the option at the end to keep it or destroy it. Now, you don't have to necessarily burn it, okay? I mean, unless you're going to do it in a safe barbecue place. But you can let it go. You're putting all your pain into this notebook, and it's for your eyes only. So you don't have to hold back. You don't have to feel ashamed. But don't feel ashamed for reaching out to people. Okay? Don't feel ashamed for needing help. I mean, if you can't reach something at the top of the shelf and you know there's someone tall around you, you're going to ask for help more than likely, right? Right. And that's okay. If you're at a grocery store and someone's tall around you and you can't reach something, don't be afraid to ask them for help. Okay, this is what we're all here for. We may not know each other. We may not even see that person again. But you know what? You may actually change their life. Somebody walking around there saying nobody needs me, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know what? I can't reach that. Would you mind helping me? That could have changed their day. You never know what the smallest act can do for somebody. Okay? It's true. I have seen it happen to me. I have seen it happen from me asking other people for help. And for some reason, I am what people would call an empath. So a lot of people tend to open up to me and talk to me just willy-nilly, okay, just out of nowhere. But sometimes I used to think it was such a hard gift to have. But now I'm grateful for it. Because like I said, that one person may have needed to talk that day. And then I'm going to be grateful that I was the person that could give them the ear. All right. So again, I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Tomorrow is Self-Care Wednesday. We'll bring the vibe back up again to something fun. The perspective will be back on track. But like I said, every so often these things are going to come up, and I think they need to be talked about because mental health is so important. That's the whole point of the perspective, is to find a way to work through our mental health, but also to raise the vibe in our mental health. All right. So again, for like a billionth time, have a great, great day. I will see everybody back here tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Facebook Live. It is public, so anybody can jump on and watch. And I do repost it right after to YouTube, and then I do share it to Twitter under GoalieFan1973 or Shellbell's Quest. I know, Shellbell's Quest. So, and on YouTube, it's the Aloha Perspective with Shelly Marie Lucas. If you do go watch there, please feel free to click and subscribe and hit the little bell for the notification so that, you know every time I posted a video. Okay? Have a great, great day. Thank you so much for watching. The subject matter, I know that was a bit, but it's something, actually I'm not sorry for the subject matter, but I do hope that I did not trigger anybody with the subject matter. So I will see everybody tomorrow, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.